The introduction of any discussion on the role of women in Bible narratives, unheard stories, is crucial in setting the context for understanding the presence and significance of female figures in these ancient texts. Women in biblical narratives are often seen through the lens of their relationships with male figures, or limited to roles defined by traditional gender norms of the ancient cultures in which these texts were written. However, this conceptual framework challenges us to see beyond traditional interpretations and uncover the more profound, sometimes overlooked contributions and experiences of women. The significance of this point lies in acknowledging the diverse roles women played in biblical stories, which often go unnoticed due to historical and cultural biases. This understanding is essential as it sheds light on the social and moral values embedded within these narratives, revealing a more inclusive and multifaceted view of biblical history. Two poignant examples illustrate this context. Firstly, consider Rahab, a Canaanite woman in the book of Joshua, who aids Israelite spies and secures her family's safety. Her story reveals themes of bravery, faith, and survival that resonate beyond her labeled identity as a prostitute, highlighting her pivotal role in the biblical narrative. Secondly, the story of Deborah, a prophetess and judge in the book of Judges, underscores female leadership in a predominantly patriarchal society. Her role in leading Israel to victory in battle challenges traditional gender perceptions and demonstrates the significant impact of women in these texts. Supportive opinions argue that exploring these narratives from a contemporary viewpoint helps modern audiences appreciate the complex dynamics and cultural nuances of ancient times. Scholars and theologians emphasize the importance of female agency and the need to derive broader social and theological lessons from their stories. Nevertheless, this area of study is not without challenges. Interpretations of biblical texts are diverse and can be controversial, often influenced by religious doctrines or cultural beliefs. Some argue that focusing on women's roles might lead to anachronistic interpretations that overlook the socio-historical context of these writings. This introductory context influences the broader discussion by opening up a dialogue about the inclusion, representation, and reinterpretation of women's roles in biblical narratives. It underscores that understanding these stories is not merely about recognizing female characters, but about appreciating the depth and breadth of their contributions and the impact on both historical and contemporary contexts. By exploring these unheard stories, we gain a richer understanding of the biblical world and its enduring legacy on gender roles today. The heading Historical Perspectives, Women's Roles in Ancient Biblical Times, delves into understanding the societal, cultural, and religious positions occupied by women in biblical narratives. This involves examining the various capacities in which women were portrayed, from figures of influence and wisdom to those of subjugation and suffering, and how these roles reflect the broader historical context of the times. This analysis is crucial for uncovering the nuanced contributions and experiences of women, whose stories have often been overshadowed by male-centric interpretations of the Bible. Understanding these roles provides a more holistic view of biblical events and highlights the contributions of women as integral, though sometimes overlooked, participants. One significant example is the story of Deborah, a prophetess and judge who led Israel to military victory. Deborah stands out as a symbol of female leadership and influence in a predominantly patriarchal society. Her narrative challenges preconceived notions of gender roles in ancient times, showcasing that women were capable of assuming roles typically reserved for men. Another example is the story of Ruth, a Moabite woman whose loyalty and perseverance led her to become the great-grandmother of King David. Ruth's narrative underscores themes of devotion and the vital roles women played in familial and societal structures. Scholars and theologians who advocate for feminist interpretations of the Bible emphasize that these stories reveal the presence and power of women in biblical history, advocating for recognition of their importance. However, the exploration of women's roles in biblical times is not without controversy. Some traditional interpretations downplay women's contributions or suggest that their roles were merely supportive. Additionally, the patriarchal nature of ancient societies often limited women's visibility in historical records, presenting challenges to contemporary analysis. This exploration of historical perspectives is interconnected with other aspects of the main topic, such as understanding how these stories influence contemporary discussions on gender equality within religious communities. By uncovering these unheard stories, one gains insight into how historical narratives have shaped modern perceptions of women's societal roles, both within biblical scholarship and beyond. Ultimately, recognizing and re-examining the roles of women in these narratives fosters a more inclusive understanding of biblical texts and challenges enduring stereotypes, encouraging broader discussions on gender dynamics in historical and religious contexts. Prominent female figures. Highlighting key stories and characters refers to the exploration and recognition of pivotal women in biblical narratives who played significant roles, yet often remain underrepresented or overlooked in traditional interpretations. This point is crucial to understanding the role of women in Bible narratives, Unheard Stories, as it seeks to illuminate the contributions, strengths, and influence of women in these ancient texts, challenging conventional patriarchal analyses. These narratives showcase women as complex characters who demonstrate wisdom, courage, and leadership. For instance, Deborah, the prophetess and judge, exemplifies strong female leadership. She is depicted in the book of Judges as a guiding force during a critical period for Israel, demonstrating that women were not only participants, but also leaders and decision-makers. Another example is Ruth, whose story of loyalty, love, and perseverance is celebrated in the book bearing her name. As a Moabite widow, Ruth's dedication to her mother-in-law Naomi and her eventual place in the genealogy of King David and ultimately Jesus underscores the vital contributions of women from diverse backgrounds. The significance of these stories lies in their ability to offer alternative perspectives to modern readers, highlighting themes of empowerment and agency at times contrary to the predominantly male-centered narratives. Prominent scholars and theologians have increasingly acknowledged these stories, arguing that they should be given more prominence in theological discourse and study. Feminist theologians in particular advocate for a re-examination of these narratives to emphasize equality and the often overlooked voices within the biblical texts. Yet, challenges and controversies abound. Traditional interpretations frequently downplay or ignore the roles of these women, reinforcing gender biases. Critics argue that many biblical stories were written in patriarchal contexts, which may distort or minimize women's actual roles and contributions. Some conservative viewpoints resist reinterpretations that elevate these figures' status, fearing a deviation from long-standing religious traditions. Exploring prominent female figures integrates into the broader discourse of unheard stories by demonstrating how women's narratives are essential for a more holistic understanding of the Bible. These stories not only reflect historical and cultural realities of ancient societies, but also influence contemporary conversations around gender, leadership, and equality in religious contexts. As we uncover and highlight these narratives, we foster a richer and more inclusive understanding of biblical stories, inviting readers to consider the depth and breadth of women's roles in sacred history. Cultural and social influences significantly shape the roles and statuses of women in biblical narratives. This concept refers to the array of societal norms, traditions, and cultural practices that govern daily life and influenced how women's roles were perceived and depicted in biblical texts. Understanding these influences is crucial as it sheds light on the context in which these stories were told and how they reflect the realities of women's lives during those times. The significance of examining cultural and social influences lies in their ability to reveal the underlying biases and norms that contributed to women's often secondary roles in biblical narratives. By acknowledging these frameworks, we gain a more nuanced appreciation of women's contributions and the constraints they faced. This perspective allows for a deeper understanding of their stories, offering a more balanced view of their importance within biblical history. To illustrate this point, consider the story of Ruth. Her narrative is deeply embedded within cultural norms of kinship and redemption practices of ancient Israel. Ruth's status and actions are profoundly informed by the custom of levirate marriage, wherein she secures her and her mother-in-law Naomi's future by marrying Boaz. This story underlines how societal structures dictated women's survival strategies and personal choices. Another example is the account of Deborah, a female judge and prophet. Her leadership stands out given the patriarchal context, highlighting the unique cultural circumstances that allowed a woman to rise to such prominence, challenging typical gender roles of her time. An opinion that supports this examination is the view that understanding these cultural contexts allows modern readers to reclaim women's narratives as significant theological texts. It has been argued that by recognizing the cultural constructs, we can appreciate women not just as secondary characters, but as active agents within biblical stories. However, challenges to this perspective include the potential for skewed interpretations that impose contemporary values onto ancient texts. Some argue that focusing too much on cultural relativism may diminish the timeless spiritual messages of the Bible. Furthermore, alternative viewpoints suggest that these narratives should be interpreted within their historical context without projecting modern critiques of gender roles onto them. This point on cultural and social influences interconnects with other aspects of the main topic by highlighting how these forces shape not only individual narratives but also collective perceptions of gender roles in theological discussions. By understanding the cultural backdrop, we better appreciate the resilience and resourcefulness of these women, enhancing the overall discourse on their nuanced roles in biblical history.